Welcome back to another episode on the MLD Balls page. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how the Atlanta Hawks are low-key a good team in the NBA. All right, so like I said, we're going to be talking about the Atlanta Hawks and how they could be a team that surprises us this next coming off season. We're going to first talk about how they landed pick number 1 in the draft. They landed Zachary Richardson, and that's a great thing to have, especially, this wasn't a team that was expecting pick 1. They were in the play-in, and, the NBA rewarded them for trying this season and gave them number 1 pick, and they were like, shout out to you. Well, next thing that happened is they traded DeJounte Murray. They had an experiment of him and Trae Young, seeing if Trae Young could work next to another point guard, which obviously wasn't the best fit. And they recuperated some assets for that while learning something about their star player. We learning that Trae Young, probably not ideal putting him next to another ball dominant player. So we're gonna get a opposite of that, a man Zachary Richardson, and he's gonna, we're gonna talk about him in a little bit. Backup point guard is now going to be a big need for this roster. That's usually how it was in the non-DeJounte Murray era. I think that's what the whole DeJounte Murray era was. It wasn't necessarily them looking for someone who fits alongside Trae Young. They were looking for someone who could take control when Trae Young is off the court and wondering if Trae Young could play with that guy. The questions about fit around those two guys was pretty obvious. It's just the main thing was, hey, when Trae Young isn't on the court, the Atlanta Hawks aren't a good team. So they're going to need to find another backup point guard. I understand Dyson Daniels, we're going to get into him, is viewed as a point guard. I view him more as a small forward. I view him in the same realm as an Amen Thompson, the same realm as a Asar Thompson, the same realm as I look at him as those type of players, Anthony Black. That's how I look at Dyson Daniels. Very good player, and just use him as a small forward, and I think that's the best of his capabilities. But we're going to also talk about Jalen Johnson, if I didn't mention already. He was a guy who, in the most improved player of the year race, he would have been maybe the runner-up, top 3 for sure, but he was hurt. And I'm pretty sure he didn't meet the qualifying games to be in nomination for the award. I'm going to double check that. I'm pretty sure that's what it was because I wanted to. Yeah, he played 56 games. I was going to put him on my ballot, but he didn't play enough. So he wasn't that bad. 51% from the field. Great lob threat for Trae Young. His 3-point shot, it wasn't bad. This is the type of guys that gonna fit next to Trae Young. A defensive 6'8" player who could rebound the ball and is a mid 3-point shooter. If Jalen Johnson could improve his 3-point shot, this Atlanta Hawks team isn't only going to be sneaky, they might be in your face good. But Jalen Johnson, if his 3-pointer could develop even more, that would be an amazing thing for this team. You got Clint Capella, and the Clint Capella timeline is a funny thing for the Atlanta Hawks because it just seems like they're not letting go of him. And I understand he's a perfect fit next to Trae Young. He's a perfect type of starting center, and he's really good. So, why give up on him? But at the same time, we all see that he's regressing a little bit. So why not cash out on him a little bit and, let Onyeka Okongwu get his shine? But, I guess not. But, yeah, the starting lineup for the Atlanta Hawks is pretty good in my opinion. I do think Zachary Richardson at the starting 2-guard position might be a hot take out of me. Might be, but I think he is someone who should be starting for them. And DeAndre Hunter next to him alongside Jalen Johnson. You have all of those big wings next to Trae Young to start games that all play off ball. You're going to just run pick and roll with Jalen Johnson and Clint Capella, while DeAndre Hunter and Zachary Richardson will be spotting up for 3 and playing defense. And then you got 2 lob threats. I think that would be an amazing place for Trae Young. You got 2 off-ball 3-and-D snipers alongside 2 lob threats. What else does Trae Young need? They're all 6'8" and above. His shortest player on his team is Jalen Johnson at 6'8" at this point. And yeah, I think that is something to have next to Trae Young, and will be a fun lineup. Off the bench, you're gonna have Bogdan, who, like I said, or I didn't mention Bogdan yet, but Bogdan is one of the best 6 men. And last year, he was, in my candidacy for sixth man of the year. So I understand putting him in the starting lineup might make more sense, and putting Ricochet at the small forward position is cool. But I think Bogdan is so good off the bench, and the team needs another dynamic ball handler off the bench to the point I'm just going to keep him on the bench. And Onyeka Okongwu and Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance are going to complement him. Because Larry Nance, y'all, we let's get on to this next slide. I wanted to mention how good of a player Larry Nance is. Like, he's a sneaky pickup that another lob threat who could play defense. Like, he is literally Jalen Johnson without a 3-point shot. Like, that is Larry Nance. Larry Nance might even be a better passer of the basketball, might be a better dunker. But Larry Nance is a very good fit next to Trae Young, which I love that the Atlanta Hawks realize themselves. Bogdan is going to be a guy who, when the Atlanta Hawks are closing games, I do think that he should be playing. I do think Bogdan is a better player than DeAndre Hunter. I just think that he's so good that I want him to come and carry the bench. So we're going to close out games with Trae Young, Bogdan, Zachary Ricochet, Jalen Johnson, and Clint Capella. That's a nice starting lineup to close out games with, or a ending lineup, I should say. But yeah, the Atlanta Hawks, they got a pretty good team that makes sense all around. They got backup point guard, which is my biggest question, in Dyson Daniels. I think if they could find a backup point guard and then keep Zachary Ricochet at shooting guard and plug in Dyson Daniels at small forward, that would be a better fit, a better team. I do think their biggest need is a backup point guard, but we'll see what they do about that. We'll see how bought into this season they are, because it's possible that they just don't even care to get a backup point guard. They just cool with Dyson Daniels as a big wing, a big point forward. Dyson Daniels, he's a point forward. I'm not saying he can't play point guard. He could, but I would prefer him as my secondary ball handler. But yeah, this team with Onyeka Okongwu coming off the bench, we already know how impactful on the defensive end he is. This year on the offensive side of the ball, it was a lot left to be desired. That's where we're hoping to see Onyeka improvements go towards. But it's coming ever so slightly. He's a decent rebounder, decent 3-point shooter for his position. He's getting better at it. I can't say decent like he's a good 3-point shooter, but he's trying, and I guess Clint Capella is the better role for now at the starting center position. But hey, Onyeka is at least shooting 1-3 a game now, so that's a cool thing, better than usual. Yeah, this reserves on the Atlanta Hawks. Kobe Buffkin is somebody who, I just put him at the end of the starting shooting guard rotation because I guess we're gonna try Kobe Buffkin. I guess we have to at this point. Vent Krejci, somebody who the Atlanta Hawks didn't do that bad with last season. So hey, you could have a guy who played well for you. Keep him. Vent Krejci did not do that bad for them. 40% from the three, 50% from the field in 25 minutes is not bad. He's 6'8", so if he could keep it up at that pace, he's cool, because he's shooting three-pointers a game. So that's a good thing to have an off-ball wing who could fit next to Trae. This whole team is catered to Trae Young. Garrison Matthews, an off-ball wing who could shoot threes. David Roddy, I don't know what he is in the NBA, honestly. David Roddy he's just an NBA player at this point. He doesn't shoot the ball well. He doesn't score the ball well. He doesn't move me on defense. David Roddy might be out of the league soon, but he's 23 years old also, so he still has a chance. David Roddy, he still does have a chance, but we'll see with him. Either way, this team is very much catered to Trae Young. Very much Trae Young ball, very much off-ball players, very much three-point shooters and lob threats, which is a good thing for Trae Young. But we're going to see what he's capable of and what he could do with a team that chooses fit over stars goes. Because I do think that fit over stars is the right way to go about it. And I do think that the Atlanta Hawks are a team that is very interesting to watch next season, y'all. I'm telling y'all, the Atlanta Hawks are going to be very interesting to watch, especially if Trae Young stays healthy, because this team has a lot of depth, and all of the depth fits Trae Young. So as long as Trae Young is healthy, this team has a chance, because he is still one of the best players in the world. I understand that people like to you know, talk about his negatives, but we got to remember Trae Young is like 26 years old, and look at how long we've been talking shit about him. That shows you how long he's been good. Because usually when people talk bad about you is when you a star, you know. And Trae Young is 25 years old actually, and we've been talking bad about him for like almost a decade. Like, bro, Trae Young is amazing, and the Atlanta Hawks, I'm happy that they realize that. I'm happy they realize he's somebody who they should build around, and I'm happy that they're doing it. And this might be their last chance with him. I don't think so though, because look, when you put it in like reality of what Trae Young is probably the second best Hawk of all time. Is he like all time Atlanta Hawk rankings? Because Dominique Wilkins is above him. Who else are you gonna like obviously put above Trae Young? Bob Pettit, maybe? Are you gonna do that though? Like, you know, I'm going to put Dominique Wilkins. I understand that. Bob Pettit, I'm cool with it. The Kembe Mutombo, that's kind of where we start, like, you know, is the Kembe Mutombo better than Trae Young as a Atlanta Hawk to this point? Just as an Atlanta Hawk. Pete Maravich, you know, that's a good question. Bro, I think Trae Young is real deal up there as greatest Hawk of all time. No matter what, he's a top 5 Atlanta Hawk of all time. And it just he's 25 years old. You know, why give up on a top 5 player in your franchise's history at 25 years old? Yeah, I don't think that was something that was ever gonna happen. And we're gonna talk about who they thought they should have moved on Trae Young for. They a lot of people felt like the Atlanta Hawks should just move on from Trae Young, you know, rebuild that pick number 1 and just blow this whole thing up. It's not what happened. It's not what was going to happen. Pretty sure we all knew that. But Zachary Richardson is going to come in and be an off-ball threat, a great glue guy. His biggest upside is defense, and he shot 40% from 3 in his league's playoffs. And we that's what we want, right? We want guys who can step up in the big moments and shoot in the playoffs. Zachary Richardson shot 40% in the playoffs, is a great versatile defender, and he reminds me of Paul George a lot. How Paul George is never all right. I'm gonna get some stuff off about Paul George that I've always felt like, and now that he's gotten older in his career, y'all have no choice but to agree. Paul George is a super role player. You know, he. Uh, okay, his best place is going to be next to a play creator who could initiate offense for him, and he's going to complement that play creator with his versatility on defense, with his size and height for his position, and his 3-point shooting. Like he's a spitting image of Paul George to me. May not be as up of a dunker, you know, but that just you know, dunking, you know, he's still gonna get his 2 points when he dunks. You know, he just Paul George dunks are cooler, I guess. But like I said, great spot up 3-point shooter. He's versatile as a defender. He's versatile on the offensive side of the ball too. He's not that bad with the ball in his hands. It's just not a strength, you know. His height and size, like I said, his defense, like I said. If Zachary Richardson could come in year 1 and be a Cam Reddish, no, not Cam Reddish was actually bad, but if he could come in and be a Harrison Barnes for this team, that would not be bad for them at all, because you would now have a lineup. Let's just say that you put Harrison Barnes in for Zachary Richardson. You have Trae Young, Harrison Barnes, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella. You would understand how that team fits around Trae Young. You'll be like, okay, Harrison Barnes, that's kind of weird putting him at shooting guard, but you know, Trae Young is so bad defensively. We're gonna put a big wing next to him to try and hide him more, and we're gonna have a good 3-point shooting. So you know, Harrison Barnes doesn't hurt us. Like, that's what the ideal process would be if you had Harrison Barnes at that shooting guard position. And I think if Zachary Richardson can at least be that, that's going to be a very good thing for the Atlanta Hawks. And if we're living in a world where Zachary Richardson, he totally pans out and is Paul George, you're going to have a starting lineup with Trae Young, Paul George, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella. You could look at that team and be like, whoa, did that defensive upside, that 3-point shooting, and Trae Young could just create plays where Paul George could take advantage of or where Paul George could complete the advantages that Trae Young creates for him, because Trae Young is an advantage creator. on any team that Trae Young is going to be on, he's going to make it easier for those guys to score the ball. And I think Zachary Richardson, his biggest complaint for me was his on-ball creation. If he has a point guard like Trae Young, who's going to give him the ball in situations where he's open and he has a one-on-one, it's going to make it easier for Zachary Richardson to walk into jump shots. And if he's going to have a point guard like this, he's going to have an improvement with his on-ball creation. Just because his on-ball creation is gonna be on one-on-ones, it's gonna be closeouts. It's not gonna be double teamed and stuff like that. Trae Young is gonna handle that business, and then Zachary Richardson is gonna come in and finish the play. I do think that's something that he's gonna be really good at. Is Zachary Richardson could come in and be Michael Porter Jr. day one. I mean, you have Trae Young, Michael Porter Jr., DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, Clint Capella. I do think he's more Jaden McDaniels than Michael Porter Jr., but I also think he's a fine line in between both of those guys. Zachary Richardson, like I said, he's going to be his own person. You can't really give draft comps and know exactly who a guy is going to be. I'm just giving the different scenarios of players that Zachary Richardson is going to be just off of his play style, just off of his prototype. He is a two-way wing who is 6'9". I wouldn't want to put him at small forward because of his capabilities size-wise, similar to Jaden McDaniels, even though he would be really good at Jaden McDaniels. I do think he's more capable of playing power forward than Zachary, but Zachary's 215, rookie year. I would just put him at shooting guard, small forward, kind of like how we do with Paul George. And if he improves on the other stuff, let him do that on his own. If he improves as like a rebounder, you can see a world where he becomes a Jason Tatum. If he's a dog and improves his rebounding and his shot creation, he could be Jason Tatum, But or he could be a Kawhi Leonard if he does that. I mean, why not? This guy is amazing at basketball, and like I said, all you looking for is a high floor with this guy, and I do think he's going to be able to provide that. I do think no matter what, he's going to be a Harrison Barnes worst case scenario. Bruce Bowen worst case scenario. And I do think this is a good pick for the Atlanta Hawks. Me personally, I might have went Donovan Clingan, but like I said, as a Hawks fan, some of y'all probably heard me say that. We're like, ew, So this draft, I understand going with Zachary Richardson. I do love the fit. I do love the player. And I do love where the Atlanta Hawks are going. I'm so happy that they moved on from DeJounte Murray. They realized that was going to be something that doesn't work well. And maybe them getting pick one in the draft made it a little bit easier. But I'm happy that they came in, did the right decision. Not something that a lot of NBA teams do. So you got to clap your hand and commend teams when they do make the right decision. And the Atlanta Hawks, like my last time saying, a sneaky team, going to be sneaky good. I wonder how good, though, because this roster isn't bad. I haven't done my Eastern Conference standings yet. I haven't done none of that yet. I'm just here talking about all of the teams that, I'm talking about all these teams one by one. And the Atlanta Hawks are one of the teams that when I'm making these graphics and stuff for them, I'm like, whoa, team's better than I thought, and I'm starting to realize, like, Trae Young did miss half the season for real, Kobe Buffkin had like the worst season he could have ever had, right? Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu, they both looked bad on the defensive side of the ball. The whole team looked bad on the defensive side of the ball, and I was questioning if that's a Trae Young thing because when Trae Young got hurt, they did look a little bit better, but it was only a little bit, on the offensive side of the balls where they surprisingly looked better. But like I said, with Trae Young, we're going to see what we got in him this season. And hopefully that coaching killer stuff with Trae Young isn't true because Quinn Snyder isn't a bad coach. And I do think that he's capable of getting the most out of this team. So like I said, team that I'm super excited for. Can't wait to watch the Atlanta Hawks this season. They're one of the teams that I usually watch the most because Trae Young is a very fun player to watch. So we're going to have Trae Young throwing lobs. We're going to have the number one pick on the team. We're going to have a team that just let go of a star player. So we're going to want to see how they look without DeJounte Murray. Fun team. Can't wait to watch them, especially they're going to be one of those teams fighting for one of the last playoff spots in the Eastern Conference. Going to be a super fun team. I'm done talking about this. Done talking about how fun of a team the Atlanta Hawks is going to be because they're gonna end up 41-41. We all know the Atlanta Hawks at the end of the day, y'all mid. Maybe that's just what it is. That's why I'm looking at y'all like y'all got a chance, bro. But y'all do y'all, maybe y'all just mid like usual. But that would be it for me in today's episode. Thank you everybody for tuning in to another episode on the MLD Balls page. Currently at 149 subscribers. It would be very much appreciated if you could like, comment, subscribe. Everybody have a nice day and God bless.